Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about complete delt development. And I'm not saying everyone needs to focus on this. Possibly if you're trying to maximize your bench as much as absolutely possible, or people who are kind of chasing that certain look, it might behoove you to do this. But keep in mind, I mean, hitting every single one of these delt angles and trying to do that can add quite a bit of fluff type work to your training. But I'm going to kind of break down for you guys some of my favorite movements for this, and particularly for a lot of my clients, uh, things that again will just help with delts and making sure that you fully develop all three heads. And some people say, well, why does that matter for the benching? And it's like, well, because with the bench press, the whole upper back is a lot of your stabilization. Okay, it helps control the bar path. Uh, Having just thicker delts, traps, everything else in general will give you better stability on the bench. Okay. Also, because we do tend to become interior dominant, and because we do need massive interior delts for a big bench, again, it's just about balancing things out as well. But we also need to maximize front delts. So you're going to notice me doing front delt exercises in here, the incline bench being one of them, assuming you can do it with your shoulders. And a lot of people have to rotate different grips so they can find at different touch points. Some people, they don't have issues at all. But if you have slightly, finicky shoulders, well, then you're going to have to really, really find that sweet spot for the incline. Um, but yeah, definitely high on that list is going to be incline bench. It is arguably one of the best front delt exercises you could do. I know coaches who feel that it is the best. I've heard Christian Thibodeau say that he thinks it's the best. I've talked about it before. And I'm not saying I like the idea of best exercises, but again, it will build the pecs. It will have a slight bias, very slight bias towards the upper chest. But again, massive front delt builder. And I think what people forget when it comes to the side delt, anything that hits the front delt hard enough is going to get some carryover to the side delt. And everything that works the rear delt really hits the side delt hard, including we even got EMG stuff with certain types of rows doing it. Which brings me to my next point. For base building, if you want big delts without doing all the small movements, really rows, particularly rows with a slightly wider grip, such as what I have to do with these seal rows. All right, this will build a lot of rear delt. Okay, this will build your traps. And because we at least have for inverted rows and stuff, we have data showing on EMGs at least, which again are not the be-all end-all, the side delt gets lit up pretty hard on inverted rows, particularly with a wider grip, which again makes sense. It does make sense. But again, incline bench plus any sort of wider grip rowing, all right? But any rowing in general. But again, on the chest supported stuff definitely is what we use a lot of times for very strong lifters. And the reason being just to cut down on the strain on the low back. Because if we're doing so many heavy deadlifts, good mornings, and you're really strong at rows, it can really generate a lot of fatigue there if we're not careful. So we do have to watch that overall fatigue unless we really limit the sets of rows. Now, a lot of my novice lifters, or very like late novices, stuff like that, sometimes I'll have them do tons and tons of rows, even off the floor. I mean, as many as 15 or 20 sets a week if they really need the back development. It's seriously lagging for them. I've done it more than once with clients, very successfully. And then their deadlift and stuff just climbs. When you get real strong, it's hard to do. All right. As far as the other movements go, you guys know that I like all three angles, and these can be done with plates, they can be done with dumbbells, they can be done with cables. And if you have access to different things, it's not a bad idea to change it up from time to time. Now, in my case, I don't have enough, the 25 and 35s and stuff to really make these work as well for, a plate raise type thing from the side or the rear. I mean, I suppose I could if I wanted. I can grab my 25-pound plates. Probably need some more calibrated plates to make that work. Because most people are, not going to grab 45s for this stuff. If you can, you're a beast. Where you just put your fingers in a plate. But I like the front raises. Again, they're very interior dominant. It is the primary head used, but they also work the pecs. And again, good data showing that. They work the pecs. All right, I like lateral raises. All right, we'd like lateral raises, with dumbbells or with cables. Works all three heads of the delt evenly. Out of these, it's probably arguably the best for the side head. So that again, we get that, works upper traps. We of course also like reverse flies. And again, yeah, sure, you can use machines for that if you need to. I mean, I think it's kind of silly to use machines for smaller single joint exercises, but you can just grab, a pair of dumbbells or a couple plates and just crank them out really easy. But, to each their own, I digress. The thing is, though, changing the angles up isn't a bad idea. Not a bad idea. Although I would argue that locked into a machine on something like that, the overuse risk is going to be higher. But rotating through them, not a bad idea. And that's why I mentioned these different variations of these movements, because overuse can be a problem. And it changes angles up. Even if you just switch from a dumbbell to a cable or dumbbell to a plate for a little while for any of these, what happens? We're changing the angle slightly. We're potentially reducing our risk of overuse. And hitting these different angles, we know that most of the data shows at this point, if you do the same number of sets, but you do 2 different exercises for the same muscle, for the same number of challenging sets, what happens? We get slightly more hypertrophy. And it makes sense, because if you think about this different muscle fiber preferences for angles, we could look at any head of a muscle and say, sure, it could recruit pretty much all the available fibers, any exercise that works it in theory. But you're going to have fibers that are slightly biased towards different parts of a movement or different angles. So if we're changing the loading a little bit with a couple different exercises, what happens? Well, we're going to get a slightly different training response in terms of the fiber distribution. And if you're chasing as much muscle as possible, not a bad idea. But the thing to note here is that we're kind of getting that already. If we do these 3 types of raises I just showed, you're already doing that. Because all of them work at least 2 heads of the delt, if not 3. So we're really getting 2 to 3 different movements for every head. Hey, that's a lot. We're getting that variation. And of course, if we're doing rowing and benching of any type, well, there we go. Now we're hitting a lot of different angles. Which also means our sets are going to have to be very limited. It's going to be very limited sets per exercise in that case, because again, too much volume, not a good thing. If we're not recovering from it, we grow slower. So again, hopefully this is helpful for you guys, just giving you some ideas on it. So I hope it has been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.